Welcome along everybody to another video. Good to see you with me again. In today's video, I am going to cover a topic that I've had a lot of experience with over the years, but I've never really delved into too much on this channel, and that is SharePoint Online. I'm a big fan of SharePoint Online. There is so much you can do with it, so I thought we'd dive into it, starting with a look at how you navigate around and understand the SharePoint Online Admin Center within Microsoft 365. Before we get to that, please do remember, if you've not already done so, hit that subscribe button to help me continue to grow the channel with your support. But with that said, let's dive in. Let's take a look at all that SharePoint with a capital S and a capital P goodness. That's for you, Kevin McDonald. And take a look and see what it's all about. It's coming up. So to get to the SharePoint Admin Center, let's start at the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, which is probably the easiest way to get to it. You can get to here by going to admin.microsoft.com with the appropriate admin permissions. I'm in as a global admin here, but you will need to look at which role is most appropriate and least privileged for you to do what you want. SharePoint Administrator may be appropriate in this case. So down the left-hand panel, we'll scroll down and we can see our admin centers. And if we click on SharePoint, it's going to take us to a new tab and open up right here. This is the SharePoint Admin Center. Now, you can get to this just as easily by typing in your tenant name, which in this case is this, tenant name, -admin.sharepoint.com. So here we are in the SharePoint Admin Center. So we start at our home page and we can see these cards here which give us a view of our SharePoint Admin Center. We can search active sites here, which will take us right into the active sites for particular sites that we are looking for, but this is a quick shortcut to search for those sites that we want. We can look at the OneDrive file activity. We can see that I've got 1.31K of OneDrive files on this tenant right now, and we can filter that by viewed or edited or synced, shared internally, and other information. We can expand and go into the full report for that. We can see messages as well. We've got 48 unread messages right here relating to SharePoint, and we can click on these and see what they relate to. So updated Microsoft SharePoint, new section level content align on pages. So we get a good summary. And when will this happen? View image in the tab and what it means, the relevance, the message ID, lots of good information. If you click on show all, this will actually take you out of the SharePoint Admin Center. Let's do it, in fact, to show you, and into the actual Microsoft 365 portal, the Admin Center, into the full admin message center where you can filter by all of the SharePoint content that you need. So just something to be aware of there. OneDrive usage, we can see OneDrive usage for the tenant. We can also see sensitivity labels across sites. So we have 15 unlabeled sites in this case. So it's telling us organization has created 5 sensitivity labels that can be applied to sites. And this chart shows usage of the 4 highest priority labels. So we can see the label names there, and what we can do right from here is go to manage unlabeled sites. So there we go, it takes us into the sites that are unlabeled, and we can then go in and apply labels to those sites directly from here. So if I pick on one and click on it, if I click onto settings, I can go to the sensitivity label and choose one for the whole site. So this is container level labeling that we're talking about here, which is really cool. Okay, back to that home tab. We've got our unlabeled sites, information barriers in SharePoint. I haven't got any segments. Information barriers, just to remind you if you don't know what they are a feature of Microsoft Purview, which allows you to create segments between groups of users within your tenants. So they can be barred from communicating with each other or even being aware of each other's existence. So very cool feature. Service health, there's some advisories reported. Let's just click and see what they are. Again, it's taking us to the Microsoft 365 Admin Center there. So yeah, it says there was 2 advisories, but it's giving me an unfiltered view of that, so it's not massively helpful. But there we go. No information barriers. Again, that one was SharePoint. This one is OneDrive. SharePoint site usage. We can see the usage of total sites and active sites. We can see SharePoint file activity. We've got 190 files here, and the SharePoint storage used as well, which is important to keep an eye on because you have 1.24 terabytes where you get 1 terabyte per tenant, but then it goes up per licensed user that you have. So then we can see our active users. So you get quite a lot on this homepage. There's a lot to get your teeth into from an overview level, quick launching point. But if you want to get deeper into the weeds, then you can expand these sections on the left-hand view, and you can see all of the sites that you have on the tenant. So I've got a multitude of sites here. I've got various different types of sites. I have an all-company site. I've got an app catalog. I've got a case here which relates to e-discovery. That must have been from memory created from an e-discovery case, which you can do as part of that process. You'll notice that some of these sites are connected to Microsoft Teams and some are not. And you can see some are channel sites as well, the storage used, and the primary admin for that. You can see if the site is set as a hub site, meaning that it is the parent for a group of other sites. I don't have any of those set up at the moment. We can see the template that was used to create the site, a team site, an app catalog site, a communication site, and we can see the last activity, date created, who created it, is there a Microsoft 365 group associated with it? Lots of statistics, finally including sensitivity labels there. So lots of really cool stuff. Nice. Okay, so that is the active sites. If you pick on a site, you can click on it and you can see all of the details for it. We can see this one is called Cyclotron. It's a public team. We can look at the general tab, see its basic info, email addresses, and various other information. We can get directly to the site from here actually if we want to. We can click on the site address and it will take us in a new tab, hopefully, yes it does, right to the site itself. And I'm not going to focus on sites themselves on this video. We'll come back and do that on another one. But this is just an example of what a typical site looks like. And this one is connected to Teams, so you'll see it has a general folder representing the general channel there as well. So, but they all look like this. This is a very common look for a SharePoint site. Okay. Right, we can also see activity for the site right here. We can see the membership, so there's lots of different permissions within SharePoint. Now, permissions is quite a big thing within SharePoint, and again, we'll get to this on another video where we look more into the sites themselves, but you can create SharePoint permissions, you can link to Entra ID permissions as well, and there are various reasons why you would do one or the other. You can see the owners of the site, the members of the site admins, the site owners, members, visitors, etc., etc. And in the settings, as we already saw, where we could set sensitivity labels, we can do things like let people outside the organization email this team or site, send copies of the team emails and events to team members' inboxes, don't show team email address in Outlook, set the privacy of the site to private or public, and we can set the external file sharing for that at the site level as well to be anyone, which I would advise against because that's very, very open. New and existing guests, or only people in your organization. So there we go. Fantastic. Here we can see at top on the menu bar, we've got Hub. We can register this site as a Hub site, or we can associate it with a Hub site. So we were talking about that a little while ago. And when we get into actually looking at SharePoint sites on another video, I'll show you what that experience looks like, how all those sites get linked together with Hubs. We have the deleted sites area here, where if you delete an active site, let's demonstrate that right now. Let's pick on a site. Let's click on, what can I pick on? Let's pick on poor old Empowering Cloud, my good friends over at Empowering Cloud. So if I click on that and I go actually to click on, can I do it from here? Yes, I can. From the three dots there, I can click on delete, and it will ask me if I want to. It warns me it's part of a Microsoft 365 group, so it's saying that the site will delete the group and all of its resources, including the Outlook mailbox, the calendar, any Teams channels, and you have 30 days to restore the group. So let's delete that and see what happens. It was deleted. Now, what you will find sometimes if you have retention policies or holds from things like e-discovery applied to your sites, it will in some circumstances not allow you to delete the site. It will prevent you from doing so under certain circumstances. Other times with retention policies in particular, as an example, it probably will let you delete the site, or it will appear to do so from a user or an admin point of view, but it will retain a copy of that elsewhere. So let's go into deleted sites now, and we can see the Empowering Cloud site is in there. Hello to my good friends over at Empowering Cloud, to Tom and Lindsay and all the team. Let's restore you. Let's put you back. So if we can highlight that, we've got 30 days to do that, and then they're retained for 93 days in total before being permanently deleted. So let's restore it. And it tells us it's connected to Microsoft Teams. It will also restore the Empowering Cloud team and all its resources, including the conversations calendar and notebooks. So nice and simple. Love it. Okay, what's the next thing? Let's just collapse that one. Containers. Containers are something that have been around for a little while now, and I actually have some in here. We've got some loop containers in here, which is interesting. So what are containers? Well, these are file storage containers for your apps. So let's learn a bit more about containers. It might be a good idea to do a video on this on its own at some point, I'm thinking. But file storage containers. SharePoint embedded applications use Microsoft Graph APIs to store files and documents in a new entity called file storage container, or a container for short. If you're an ISV, which, racking my brains, is independent service vendor, I think, your app will create these containers in your customer's Microsoft 365 tenant. And if you're an enterprise, your app will create these containers in your own tenant. Each container provides a place to store files, and you can think of them as similar to an API-only document library in SharePoint, with some slight differences. Your app can create many of these containers inside each tenant that uses your app, and each container can be granted permissions, separately storing many files with multiple terabytes of content. So SharePoint embedded containers are dedicated to and accessible by just your app. So the files and documents your app depends on are isolated and secure within that tenant boundary. So let's take a little look at this one. Container name getting started. And the application name is Loop, which is going to be Microsoft Loop, I am guessing. I vaguely recall doing this some time ago, but I haven't explored it very much. So probably something to come back to on another video and dive into a little bit more deeply. But at least you know the principle of containers now. And we can see active containers, deleted containers as well. And the same principles apply. If you delete a container, you can restore it in the same manner as the sites. Next, on to policies. Now, these are a very important part of the SharePoint Admin Center, where we can control the sharing and the access control settings. We can use these settings to control sharing at the organizational level in SharePoint and OneDrive. So that's important to know. OneDrive does not have its own admin center. It is part of the SharePoint Admin Center here. So here, external sharing, we can choose where and how content can be shared. And by default, which is a bad thing, it is set to the most permissive, which is anyone, where users can share files and folders using links that don't require sign-in. So at the very least, I would encourage that you take this down, and you can drag the slider down for both SharePoint and OneDrive to new and existing guests who must sign in or provide a verification code. Even more restrictive, existing guests already in your organization's directory, or only people in your organization where no external sharing will be allowed. So most permissive to least permissive. And this is usually a good starting point, new and existing guests. But it's all going to be depending on your organizational needs. and your appetite for risk and your security policies and requirements. Okay, and you can further restrict sharing for each individual site and OneDrive at the individual site level. Okay, more external sharing settings. We are also able to limit external sharing by domain. So if we click onto this, we can add specific domains that we want to apply. So we can allow only specific domains or block specific domains at this level. Very, very cool. We can allow only users in specific security groups to share externally. We can manage those security groups from here. Guests must sign in using the same account to which the sharing invitations are sent. I would definitely encourage having that one clicked. We don't want them signing in using a different one, in my opinion. Allow guests to share items they don't own. Now that was ticked by default, and that worries me greatly. I don't know why that would be so. So I'm going to untick that because that to me is bad. Guest access to a site OneDrive will expire automatically after a certain amount of days. So this may be one you want to consider having on, depending on your policies or appetite for risk, or simply to keep things tidy and not have stale permissions and access to OneDrive and SharePoint sites. People who use a verification code must re-authenticate after this many days. So we can apply that and apply a certain amount of days. So I'm going to leave that one on and leave it as 30 days, which I think is absolutely fine. File and folder links. Now we can choose the type of link that's selected by default when users share files and folders in SharePoint and OneDrive. So we can have specific people, only the people the user specifies. We can have only people in your organization, or we can have anyone with the link. And you'll notice this one is grayed out, and this one is grayed out due to permissions that I selected earlier on in this area here. So that is not selectable. We can choose the permission that's selected by default for sharing links. So we can have that permission be view or edit. So choices there for us. And finally, we have other settings which are show owners the names of people who viewed their files in OneDrive. Let site owners choose to display the names of people who viewed their files or pages in SharePoint, and use short links for sharing files and folders. All good ones to have switched on, in my opinion. So I'm going to save those settings and keep them as I've selected them there. Next, on to access control. And here we can use settings to restrict how users are allowed to access content in SharePoint and OneDrive. First, unmanaged devices. We can restrict access from devices that are not compliant or joined to a domain. So the setting that you select here is going to apply to all users in your organization. To customize conditional access policies, save your selection and then go to the Azure AD Admin Center. So what that's referring to is, depending on what you select here, you may find that some additional conditional access policies are created, which you will need to be careful of and monitor and track. So just be mindful of that. The options here are allow full access from desktop apps, mobile apps, and the web. We can allow limited web-only access, which I think is definitely a good one to do for this sort of example, or we can entirely block access, be the most restrictive of all. So look into this option if you're going to do it. Go to the Learn documents just to understand the implications of what you're doing and any tie-ins to conditional access that you might need to be aware of. The idle session timeout. This will warn and then sign out users on unmanaged devices after a short period of inactivity. And you can choose whether this is on or off, and you can change the settings to sign users out after periods of time or give users a period of notice before signing them out. So very good option to have. Network location, you can use this setting to allow access only from IP addresses that your organization owns. So we can turn this on or off and enter those IP address ranges. And you need to make sure that your own IP address is included in those ranges so you don't lock yourself out. Very important. Apps that don't use modern authentication. So some third-party apps and previous versions of Office can't enforce device-based restrictions because they're not modern auth supported. So we can use this setting to block all access from these apps. So we can allow access or we can block access. And then finally, OneDrive access restriction. This setting is used to allow only users in specific security groups to access OneDrive content. You can add up to 10 security groups. Users not in these security groups will lose all access to all OneDrive content. So if you click on that, you can add the specific security groups for that restriction and apply it as needed. Now we move from policies and onto settings. So in here, we can get settings for various aspects of SharePoint and associated services like Stream and OneDrive. So we can set up home sites that link to Viva Connections experiences. So this is not set. So if we click on to home sites, it tells you that it's actually moved to Viva Connections in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So home sites can be created when you set up a new Viva Connections experience and use that to create a company branded app where employees can explore news, discover resources, and easily access the tools and apps they need to get their work done. So that will take you to the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. I'm not going to drain all the content in this area. You can see for yourself by scrolling through that you can set things like site storage limits, and you'll get fly out panels which show you how to do those either automatically or manually. Set specific limits for each site. As an example, we can set content relating to Stream, so the Stream app launcher file and the default destination for the Stream app launcher file, which is cool. And we've got some OneDrive settings here as well. And if you can't find the settings that you're looking for, go to the classic settings page, which for the most part I would think will relate to a lot of older ways of doing things or deprecated content. So I wouldn't imagine there's going to be too much cause for you to go into those classic settings. So quick look at the settings page there. Next, let's take a look through content services. And this includes the term store and the content type gallery. Now the term store, this enables you to manage your taxonomy. Now first there's a recommended section at the top here which links to managing your organization's knowledge better using topics, which subsequently uses AI to automatically identify subjects of interest and related resources in your organization. So take a look at that. But what you can do in here in the term store is you can edit the term store as an admin and add people who can create new term set groups or assign users to the group manager role. You can set the default languages and the working languages. And here's the taxonomy, basically the descriptions of all of these terms that are in there. And these are broken down by people, search directories, and systems. You can expand these taxonomy selections to look at the subcategories of department, job title, location under people there. Same for search directories and system. And you can go through the general usage settings, navigation, and advanced sections there to see the stakeholders, owners, contacts, etc. You can associate a set of columns with specific types of content. If you're familiar with SharePoint already, you'll know that you can create announcements and basic pages within your sites. And if we take a look at this announcement one, we'll see the columns that are associated with the announcement type. We can create our own content type as well if we want to. We can give it a name, a description, use an existing or create a new category and select the content type that we want, and we're good to go. Next, migration. Now, there are some great built-in features for migration within the SharePoint Admin Center here, and you can migrate for free, I might add, your file shares. You can copy your on-premises file shares to Microsoft 365. It's very easy to follow along these wizards. If you click on Get Started, you have to download agents to get going with this, and then you can do scans, migrations, monitor your agents. So that's really cool. You can do the same from Box. You can migrate from Box, from Stream, Google Workspace, Dropbox, and Ignite as well. And under other migration solutions at the bottom here, you can download the SharePoint migration tool, also free, from which you can migrate content from SharePoint server versions like 2010, 2013 and 2016. It's very easy to use. You can do incremental copies and very, very instinctive. I've used it before. I think you'll enjoy doing so. So There are causes to use the paid for migration tools on occasions if you want more advanced features, but if your migration needs are quite basic, then check this one out first. These options here, they may be good for you. Under Reports and Data Access Governance, you can view reports for sharing links and also sensitivity labels applied to files. Really cool stuff indeed. And if you click on to view reports, you can see the type of reports available to you, and you can run these reports by selecting them and then running them. Quite easy to do. I had one that I set off earlier, which is the anyone link. So you'll recognize these are the sharing with anyone, the people in your organization or specific people links shared externally. So anyone links, if I click onto there, I can see a report that no sites were found, so that's a good thing, I think. And this is not a production tenant, this is a test tenant at the end of the day, so I wouldn't expect to find too much. Sensitivity labels apply to files. We can look at reports for those as well, and if I do that, I can see sites with files labeled confidential and highly confidential. I selected those. I could have added more. I could have added other labels in there, as you can see, the general, personal, and public. Next, we have the advanced submenu. If we click on that, we can see API access. Here we can manage access to Entra ID, that should say Microsoft, secured APIs from SharePoint framework components and scripts. You can learn more about managing these requests from the link there. So I'm not going to dwell on this one as I don't know much about it. It might be one for me to learn and come back to, and we can do another video on it another time. Next, on to advanced management. Now you'll see this has a pro next to it, which is going to get you additional features, which I'm taking to mean it's part of SharePoint Premium. So here you can manage and govern SharePoint and OneDrive with advanced tools and advanced M365 secure collaboration abilities. If you recently purchased a license and started a trial, it may take up to 24 hours for the license to take effect. We can learn more about SharePoint Advanced Management from clicking on the link. We can do lots of different sort of things. We can block download policy for SharePoint and OneDrive. We can find out who made particular site or organization setting changes and when. Control whether users can access sensitive sites based on conditions, so relating to conditional access policies, data governance reports, and much more. I think from memory, some of these features used to be available in SharePoint All Up, but have been integrated into the more premium features for which you have to get an additional license for now. I'm going to do that. I'm going to sign up for the trial, and we'll loop back around and we'll take a look at this in more detail at some point. You can also customize your side panel navigation here. If you hit on that, you can select all or take off from this left-hand bar the things you don't want. So you might not want to see certain things like content services or advanced or whatever else. But that's it, folks. That is a quick whistle-stop tour through the SharePoint Admin Center. We've whizzed through that really, and we've not drilled down deeply into anything in particular. I do intend to do more on SharePoint. It's an area that we've not covered in any great detail on the channel, and it's something that historically I have worked with a lot. So it's good to get back to SharePoint. So there we go. Let's wind up the video. And there you go, that's SharePoint Online, the Admin Center. As you can see, there's lots more that we could delve into as we go through and start a little bit of a mini SharePoint series. I think there's lots of cool stuff in there that interacts with a lot of the security, compliance, and identity features that we're very, very fond of covering on this channel. So let me know what you think. Let me know what your experience has been with SharePoint Online and OneDrive and all of the associated services, how it ties into Teams and all that good stuff. I'm always interested to hear your comments. Right, thank you as ever for watching, subscribing, and joining the channel. If you've not done so, hit that subscribe button. Free, it's easy to do so. Hit the notifications bell as you do it, and if you want to become a member, check out the join button too. Thanks for your support. You take care. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.